to our penultimate table speaker. The Chair welcomes the third speaker for the opposition, Graham Simpson. He has been the MSP for Central Scotland since 2016 and was a former member of the Scottish Conservatives, serving as the Conservatives Party spokesman for housing until 2021 and also serving as the Shadow Cabinet Secretary for Transportation, Infrastructure and Connectivity from 2020 to 2021. In August this year, Graham defected to Reform UK and is currently the party's only representative in Holyrood. He has been a long-standing supporter of Brexit, emphasising pragmatic ways the departure can work effectively for Scotland within the UK. Graham, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mr. President. That is the title, isn't it?
If you so wish.
Well, we'll go for that. And can I thank all of you for coming tonight and all the speakers that we've had, including some excellent contributions from the floor. It's really important that you have these debates, and I also want to thank you for making me feel very old, especially you, Ben, when you said you were only 10 when the vote took place. That did make me feel old. It's been an interesting debate, hasn't it? If I can start by looking at the motion before us, because that's a curious form of words. Because what does "this House regrets Brexit" actually mean? Does it mean this House regrets the outcome of the historic vote in 2016? Because if that was the question, then I would suggest Alex Cole-Hamilton and Matthew Parris would always have been of that view. They regretted the outcome of that democratic vote. Or does it, in fact, mean that this House regrets the outcome so far of leaving the EU? It might mean that, and if that is the question, then I would have some sympathy with that, because I don't think it's been massively successful. Now, I was reflecting on my time in Parliament. I was one of only a handful of members of the Scottish Parliament to admit to voting to leave the EU ahead of the vote, and indeed after it. Some came out the closet afterwards, but I was one of the few. And just ahead of the June vote, on May the 26th, just after I'd been elected, I spoke for the first time in the Scottish Parliament on this very subject, and I referenced Jim Sillars in that speech and the inarguable logic of his position as a Scottish nationalist, which I'm not, and we've heard that tonight. Now, I've been looking back at what I said then to see if I still agree with myself. And I think that's a useful thing to do occasionally. And actually, I do, which is good. I started that speech by saying that I'd never had the chance to have a say over our membership of the EU. I told how my parents and grandparents did in 1975 when they were asked if they wanted to stay in the common market. Note that no one asked whether we should join in the first place. The voters in 1975 were duped, however, because I would have voted to stay in the common market if I'd had a vote then, but our leaders knew and did not tell the public that they were actually signing up to a political project that would lead to ever greater political integration. The question for me in 2016, when I did have a vote, was how do I want to be governed? And that's what it came down to in the end for me. That was the only question for me that mattered. We could argue about prices, the economy, immigration and security, and there were really good arguments on both sides of the debate on all those subjects. But my question was, did I want decisions affecting my country to be taken by people out with these borders? Did I think that it's right that unelected and unaccountable European judges can overturn the decisions of democratically elected politicians here? Did I think that it's right that policies can be decided by unelected bureaucrats and imposed on this country? And my answer to all those questions was no, and that remains my answer. And in 2016, I posed this question: why did so many in the political class want to remain? And I said that it could be because the EU serves them and their armies of bureaucrats very well. Those in the bubble were hardly likely to want to burst it. I said the EU is nothing but a political project. It's a first-class only gravy train with no stops, where the buffet car serves only the finest food, never mind the cost, and it's one way to ever closer union. And I ended by telling the Scottish Parliament of a sign in the European Commission building in Brussels that reads, "Europe, your country." And that's what they believe. And if you think we should have a continent with open borders, controlled from the centre, then maybe that's what you think as well.
Would the member take a point of information?
I certainly will.
I'm very grateful to Graham Simpson for giving way. Does he recognise, though, that those open borders, that cooperation, that shared goal has ended a century of war in continental Europe?
I would say it's our membership of NATO that has ended a century of war. And, you know, the EU is not a defence pact, Mr. Cole Hamilton. You know, there's no point in interrupting now. You can stand up again if you wish. No, please do.
Well, of course NATO is a defence pact, but the absence of war is far more than just a collaboration of armed forces. It's about shared culture, shared goals, shared economics, and shared ideals. All of these are encapsulated in the Treaty of Rome and the 4 freedoms we've left behind. Yes.
There is absolutely nothing stopping the countries of Europe, whether or not they're in the EU, from cooperating on defence, as we are doing, as we see the horrors in Ukraine. Now, over 17.4 million people voted to leave the European Union in 2016. That wasn't a mistake. It was a moment of national self-determination. And today, I realise I'm up against it. I really am up against it, given some of the contributions. But I hope we can persuade some of you that it was worth doing. Brexit restored parliamentary sovereignty. That is important. We're no longer subject to EU directives or the European Court of Justice, though it still has some influence. Our laws are made here, debated here, and Parliament is accountable to the British people, and you can get rid of governments, and I hope we get rid of both our governments when we get the chance. Yes?
What tangible impact has this action had that makes people's lives better?
I didn't catch that.
What impact did Brexit make that made people's lives better?
Well, I'll come on to that. I promise. Maybe I'll come on to that now. A lot's been said about the economic challenges of Brexit, but we shouldn't confuse short-term adjustment with long-term potential. The UK has already signed trade deals, to answer the point made earlier, with over 70 countries. That includes major economies like Japan, Australia and New Zealand. These deals weren't possible under EU membership, which required collective negotiation. I'll take another, we call them interventions in the Scottish Parliament.
Bureaucracy seems like a big sticking point to you.
Sorry, just slightly louder, sorry.
Bureaucracy seems like a big sticking point to you, and you seem to think that our exit has managed to minimise the bureaucracy which we previously had with the EU. But as we renegotiate, what I would say are ineffective pacts, getting tomatoes from, let's say, Morocco instead of Spain, or things from Australia that can be locally sourced within our neighbouring countries. How is this decreasing the level of bureaucracy that we are engaging with as a country with our
That was almost as long as an Alex Cole Hamilton intervention in the Scottish Parliament. However, I do think that it's important that Britain has the opportunity to strike these trade deals, as it has, over 70 of them. Immigration, that's not been a huge success. The claim was made that we would have greater control over immigration. That has gone wrong, no doubt about it. There is a small boats crisis. You can't deny that. I'd accept that point. Outside the EU, the UK is reforming. I've taken 3 already. I must get to my concluding points. Outside the EU, the UK is reforming its regulatory landscape to support growth and innovation. Brexit has brought challenges. Trade with the EU has declined. The UK exports to the EU fell by 27% between 2021 and 2023. That's a downside. But for me, the big point is that in terms of politics, decisions are now made here. They're made in Westminster or Holyrood, not Brussels. Ministers are accountable to voters, not EU commissioners. We can turf out our governments. Let's hope that happens. Brexit is not a destination, it's a journey. We're building a new economic model, reforming regulation and expanding global trade. Now, regretting Brexit implies that our relationship with the EU was ideal, and it was not. And Matthew Parris made that point. In fact, I thought he was speaking on my side of the argument when he first started talking. I still think he probably is, because he didn't have many kind words about the EU. It's complex, it often has rigid institutions, it has deep structural flaws. Brexit allows us to engage with the EU as equals, not subordinates. To regret Brexit is to look backwards, it is to dwell on what might have been rather than what can be. And I think, frankly, if the EU can start accepting the vote, and those like Alex Cole Hamilton and Matthew Parris can just get over it, then maybe we can negotiate a better deal, look forward to a brighter future. I don't regret Brexit. I don't regret my vote. And you shouldn't regret Brexit too, because as young people, you should be full of optimism, not pessimism.